A typical web app uses various HTML tags to describe its structure. Here is how to use Elm to add various HTML tags to a web app. Let's look at the popular HTML div tag. The div tag is delimited by left and right angle brackets. The tag can have various attributes such as ID and class. In this example, the ID tag has the value cart. /div marks the end of the div tag. Inside the div tag, we can have various child nodes with other HTML tags, and even just text, such as the welcome text here. To get this HTML code, use the div function in Elm. The div function has two parameters, the list of attributes and the list of child nodes, similar to the HTML div tag. In this example, the list of attributes has only one item, the ID Elm function, which takes the cart string as an argument. Similarly, the list of child nodes has only one item in this basic example, the text Elm function, which takes the welcome string as argument. Notice the direct mapping between HTML attributes and the list of attributes in the Elm code. The same happens for child nodes. The list of Elm child nodes includes just a call to the text function. To use the div function, we need to import it from the HTML package. Other HTML tags follow the same pattern. They have corresponding Elm functions with two parameters, the list of attributes and the list of child nodes. Notice how functions play a huge role in Elm. Functions are first-class citizens, which means they can be accepted as arguments or returned by another function. Elm supports anonymous functions, which means functions without a name. Here is a function with the name greeting that has an integer parameter and returns a string. The equivalent anonymous function uses a slightly different notation. There is an arrow instead of an equal sign for its definition. The parameter has a backslash, which signals its use for defining an anonymous function. In this example, the anonymous function is assigned to the greeting variable, which can now be used as a function that accepts an integer and returns a string. Pipe operators are very useful in Elm to make the code easier to read and understand by avoiding lots of parentheses when passing results from a function to another function. For example, calling the fromInt function with a count variable can be rewritten as count WritePipe to the fromInt function. Notice how the WritePipe points to the direction of data flow. The flow can also take place to the left. Here is an example of feeding 0 to greeting, which is then piped to the HTML text function. These pieces of code do the same thing. However, fewer parentheses make the code easier to read, especially with a large number of function calls. Let's have a demo and improve messages in the web app. The idea is to use div and header3 tags instead of just simple text. We are also going to take advantage of left and right pipes. On the demo machine, switch to Visual Studio Code. Instead of calling the text function to display these 3 string values, we are going to add a div tag with 3 child nodes to it. Let's comment this line to keep it as a reference. Go to Edit, and notice that Ctrl/ is the default shortcut to toggle a line comment. Next, add the div function. We get this nice prompt to auto-import the div function from the HTML module, then add 2 empty lists as arguments. No red squiggles means that the compiler is happy. The first argument is the list of attributes. To add an ID attribute, call the ID function, enter the cart string as an argument. The compiler is happy, so let's add child nodes to the second list. For the first child node, call the h3 function to add a heading 3 tag. Add 2 empty lists as arguments. The compiler is happy, so let's add the second child node. Use a comma to separate items in the list and call the div function with 2 empty lists as arguments. Repeat these steps to add the third child node, comma, div, and 2 empty lists. Press Ctrl S to save the file. Now let's add the greeting to header 3 as a child node, which means it needs to be added to the second list. Enter greeting of 0. The red squiggles indicate that the compiler is no longer happy. Hovering the mouse over it shows it's a type mismatch. To fix this, we need to call the HTML text function like earlier. To avoid parentheses, just pipe greeting of 0 to the text function. Do the same for the div. The second list has child nodes, so add day promo of 1 piped to the text function. For the last div, let's use a write pipe. Start with the text function, then pipe the fruit promo message to it. Save the file and notice the structure. We are going to have an outer div with the ID attribute set to cart. Inside the outer div, we are going to have a header 3 and 2 more divs. Let's switch to the browser and refresh the page. Alright, the page looks better. The underlying HTML source code shows the outer div, the header 3, and the 2 other divs. Let's add more content to this page.